So, what I want to talk about in this part of the video is how I am translating notes that I make while I read into a system where I hopefully will be able to remember and connect and reference those notes in the future. And I want to say a few things before I show you the specifics around how I'm using Tinderbox to do that. One is based on a philosophy or method of note taking called Zettelkasten. Um, and I guess I should say that for both how I'm using Tinderbox and also how I'm using Zettelkasten, I'm making this up as I go along, highly informed by things I've read. But I am not in any way an expert on these things or the creator of these methods or anything like that. I've really just tried to run with it and do stuff so that I learn by doing, basically. So I may highly change my approach as I continue to do this, but right now this is how I am recording the notes that I feel are important. So in that sense of what's important, I also want to kind of paint a picture that this this action of writing down a note in the system Zettelkasten, a Zettel, is uh, it's a thing that I look at as this is a little piece of information that I might want to refine over time. This is just the first draft of my thoughts around this one specific idea, and it will be edited multiple times over a long period of time. So when I think about this one particular file in Tinderbox, whether or not it's true, I'm imagining that 10 or 20 years down the road, I'm still going to have value and find value in this specific one little note that I have written. And so when I write that note, I'm not writing it for me today or me during the general exam. I'm writing it for the 10 years down the road me or the 20 years down the road me, and how she will reference those notes or edit them or connect them to other things that she's learning then. So the note is already a very high value to me when I put it into the system. So Zettelkasten, I don't know German, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it is a system that's basically, I'm using it electronically, but index cards that have such notes on them that can be sort of sorted into different collections that help you synthesize and even write down your ideas and publish them and that sort of thing. And so the kind of heart of the system would be metaphorically just a small piece of paper, and you put lots of these small pieces of paper into a box, and you have lots of boxes of notes, and this is sort of the history of all the things that you have learned and want to remember. So here in Tinderbox, which is a piece of software that is just for taking notes or managing or sorting or thinking about, but the whole foundation of Tinderbox is a note. I found it to be the best tool for me to use because it's both visual and textual. I can have metadata and tags and run sort of programs and stuff on my collection of notes, but I can also just manipulate them. I can put them, make different shapes and put them in different order and sort them like I would on a table with a bunch of index cards. And I'm not at the point, even though I really like using a paper notebook to write down my notes while I'm reading, I'm not at a point where I want to really manage a whole bunch of paper. I've been bullet journaling and using paper-based stuff for several years now, and I find that it's really challenging to find stuff. And I don't want to have 10 years from now the need to find something on paper. I want to be able to search for it using digital tools. So I went with a digital solution, but you wouldn't have to. So I guess I just say all that to say, and I'll show you what I mean in terms of what a note looks like that's a Zettel, but this is a method of note taking that's kind of got a specificity to it. And I'm trusting in that, as I was mentioning before, in terms of a process. This is a process that I'm able to learn from other people who are trying to keep their notes and reference them later. And so I'm trusting that that's the right thing, and that when I go to, for example, write the general exam, I'll be able to reference these notes, and the visual impact and the ways that I've sorted them on the screen will kind of evoke connections in my mind and remind me of things and help me to actually write out my answers to the general exam. We'll see if it actually works. So here is a screen in Tinderbox that just has all of the notes that I have created that I have defined as zettels, because not every note I put into my Tinderbox file I will actually make a zettel. And so this is I think it's called an agent, and it's an agent that runs, and it says anything that has been marked as zettel, put it on this desktop. And so this has absolutely no organization to it, and you'll see that all of the notes are italicized, which means that they are aliases for actual notes that live in different places. But I wanted to just click on a few of them so you could kind of get the idea of what, for me, constitutes a note, like how specific and how vague and how long and how short and that sort of thing. So I mentioned in the last video that I had made a note, aesthetic response, do you like something or not? And so I wanted to find that one and show you how I turn that into a zettel. So that's right here. And in that one, my note looks like this. It combines several different notes. I didn't want just one zettel on that one detail. I wanted to kind of wrap it all up in something called the initial effective reaction, which is, do you like something or not, according to this researcher. And so I wrote in this sort of tone that is almost as if it were for someone else, but it's not totally professional. And it includes kind of notes to self at this point, notes to future self that knows more and can maybe use those notes to flesh out her thoughts once she knows more. So I'll just break apart this note. Ulrich is the author. For Ulrich, affect equals emotion. And then I make a note on like what affect really means. But for him, affect just basically means mood or emotion. So that's all that really matters, is that if he's using the word affect, it really just means emotion. And that you don't learn emotions. You have emotions, but you don't learn them. In fact, we come kind of baked, no matter if we can, if we're blind and we make the same facial expressions based on fear or joy. So these affects that we sort of come with, we don't learn from others, according to this researcher. And as we age, our affects become associated with memories and experiences that we have, and so they become cognitive and emotional. But at first, this initial affective reaction is always just emotion, is always aversion or leaning towards something. And those things are adaptive evolutionarily for us to act for our own well-being. So that's the sort of idea of initial affective reaction. You're going to experience something, and your first reaction is going to be emotion. It's not going to be thinking, and that thinking will come later and will be imbued with all sorts of emotions the older that you are. So this is sort of the note. Then at the end, I put this sort of note to future self, which says that this reminds me of Buddhism's focus on aversion. And I am kind of curious to make connections across mindfulness and this environmental psychology stuff that I'm reading here. And so this is, in the future, when I see this, will I still think that this is connected to aversion in Buddhism, or will I not just highlight it and delete it? We'll see. And at the very end of the note is the citation, which if I were to click right now, would lead me to a completely different area of my Tinderbox file, which contains all my citations. So it's sort of a wiki link. It's a link that links within the document to another note, which is a citation in this case. So that's one, and that's a fairly robust zettel for me. Here's another one. Let's go to being away. which is just a single sentence. For an environment to be restorative, it must feel like you have escaped or withdrawn from your ordinary, attention-depleting environment. This is a concept, it's being away is a specific concept in a framework by a couple of researchers, Rachel and Stephen Kaplan. I think his name is Stephen Kaplan. And this is linking to the article by him, and it's basically my words for that concept. And so that zettel is very, very tiny compared to the other one. And here's another one on water. So you would think, what would the zettel for water contain? And in this case, it contains water in relation to restorative environments, not water in relation to, for example, chemistry or any other thing. It's really highly contextual. What does water mean for me in this situation? That I wrote it down in my piece of paper and then wanted to translate it. So these are just a few examples of the zettels that I've created so far. I'm going to stop the video now, and then I will open it back up to a different area in Tinderbox where I've actually situated these zettels in a more meaningful way so that I can not only make my notes about things that I've read, but then put them visually into models that help me digest the ideas.